What is going on, chess YouTube? So in today's video, I want to show you a brilliant game where Magnus Carlsen invents a brand new chess opening. This game did occur in the February 2024 Title Tuesday tournament, and it is a shocker. And here we go. In the game, Magnus opens 1a3, as he often does in these Title Tuesday games, and now his opponent, the great Yuniesky Quesada Perez, I'm just going to call him black. He does go 1d5, getting space in the center. Nothing wrong with that. Now here, on move 2, Magnus shows he is committed to playing a very weird game. He goes h4, gaining space on the king side in the spirit of the great Alpha Zero. Now here, black has many different responses. The strongest move is simply e5, getting those two beautiful pawns on e5 and d5. Now instead here, black does go bishop f5 in the spirit of the London opening. The main idea being he wants to go, say, e6, knight f6, h6, bishop e7, short castles, and so on. And black will have a very fine position with that light squared bishop outside the pawn chain. However, here, Magnus, on move 3, he busts out his brand new chess opening. He does go e3, and this is a very, very, sneaky idea. The point being, Magnus wants to go g4 next. Try to trap that light squared bishop. Now here, black has many different ways to deal with this brand new chess opening. For example, he can go, say, knight f6, guarding the g4 square. The computer also likes the idea of e5, the point being after g4, you can go bishop e6, dropping back your bishop. But here, black, he falls right into Magnus Carlsen's trap. He plays the move e6, and this move is nearly suicide. Don't worry, the game goes on, but this move is just absolutely terrible. I don't know how else to say it. Here, Magnus, he simply just goes g4. Of course, that was the idea of e3, opening up this diagonal with the queen, therefore supporting the g4 break. And now, look at this. It is some sort of Noah's Ark's trap. If the bishop goes back, you go h5. If it goes forward, you go f3. And the bishop is literally going to have nowhere to go on this diagonal. What is black going to do? Well, he goes bishop e4, putting pressure on that rook. Now here, Magnus, of course, f3. And now here, black, he busts out his idea to fight back in this game. He goes bishop to e7, putting pressure on that pawn on h4. Now, of course, if white takes the bishop, then bishop takes h4, wins the pawn, puts the king under check, and forces the move king to e2, as there's virtually nothing else to do. And by the way, I haven't named this brand new chess opening so far. What should I be calling this? How about what should I call it? Well, this opening does pack a punch, and the strongest punch in the world of any animal is the Peacock Mantis Shrimp. Therefore, I'm calling this the Norwegian Peacock Mantis Shrimp, as after all, Magnus is Norwegian. So, Norwegian Peacock Mantis Shrimp opening. Now here, white does take on e4, f takes e4, giving up that pawn on h4, and here black does swoop in and take it. Bishop takes h4, now king to e2 is forced, the bomb cloud style move in this Norwegian Peacock Mantis Shrimp opening. Of course, you can take the bishop with the rook, but then queen takes h4, wins back the piece immediately, and again, king to e2 is going to be forced no matter what, so no point in delaying it any further. Now here, black's going to have a wide variety of choices here. For example, you can take the pawn on e4. You can also go g5 or h5, or even say knight to c6 and heading knight e5, putting more pressure on the king side. Now in the game, black does play d takes e4. That is the strongest move. And now Magnus puts some pressure on that pawn with the move knight to c3. And so far here, of course, Magnus has a crushing advantage out of this opening, the Norwegian Peacock Mantis Shrimp opening, as after all, black, of course, lost that minor piece on e4, that being the bishop. All right, now here, black is going to fight back. In the game, he does go f5, gaining space, trying to open up lines, and overall, trying to get his kingside pawn majority rolling down the board. He does have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pawns on the king side versus the 2 of Magnus, so that is certainly the right idea, certainly the idea in this Title Tuesday Blitz game. All right, now here, Magnus, he has to find the right follow-up. It turns out the only good move here for white, you know what, good time for a puzzle. Go and try to find the right follow-up for Magnus in this position right here. But while you're at it, go and smash that YouTube like button for more videos just like this. All right, here, the key idea for white is going to be g takes f5. It looks very scary. After all, you're giving black that mobile kingside pawn majority after e takes, but it turns out that is the right way forward. Then you go d3, clamping down on the center, and you will be relatively okay. Now, instead here, Magnus does go d3 immediately, and it turns out this is significantly weaker. You simply had to go, g takes f5 first, and then d3. Now here, black, he does go queen to g5, flying out with the queen and threatening ideas like queen takes g4 or f takes g4. Both those ideas would be very, very dangerous. Now, once again, Magnus, he has one last chance to go G takes F5. If he doesn't do that right now, he's going to be in a world of trouble. That is the only good move. There are some other decent ideas. For example, knight H3, king D2, even knight B5, threatening knight takes C7. Hitting the king and the rook are all playable, but overall, G takes F5 is the clear favorite of Stockfish. Now here, instead of those options, Magnus, he goes off the deep end. He plays the move D takes E4 in the Norwegian Peacock Mantis Shrimp opening, and this move is a massive mistake here. You simply don't want to go D takes E4, and here's why. It turns out black can take on G4 with the F-pawn or the queen. If you take with the F-pawn, that is the stronger move. Queen takes G4 turns out it's actually quite a bit weaker, as white then goes knight to F3, developing his king side, and he will be okay. And black knows that. Instead of queen takes G4, that is the more obvious move. He actually goes F takes G4. And again, this pawn clamps down on the king side. It stops the knight from getting out into the game. And now here, black, he has a massive bind on the position. And despite being down a minor piece, yes, he has those two pawns on the king side for the piece, but overall, despite being down material, black is doing relatively okay in this Norwegian Peacock Mantis Shrimp opening. All right, now here, Magnus, the strongest move here, believe it or not, it's kind of wild, is queen D3, intending queen B5, putting pressure on the king, the pawn on B7, and the queen on G5. That is the right way forward, queen D3, and then queen to B5. Now, instead here, white does go E5, gaining space, and the idea, I think, he wants to go E4 with the discovered attack of the bishop on the queen, but that is a little bit too slow in this brand new chess opening, and here black is going to be doing very, very well for himself. He continues, knight to C6, putting pressure on that pawn on E5, threatening knight takes E5, and threatening rook D8, gaining control of the open D file. That would put Magnus under quite a bit of pressure. And what does Magnus do here? Well, he ignores all those threats, and he goes bishop G2, trying to get his king side developed, potentially threatening bishop takes C6 ideas. Not a bad idea in principle, but here black does go knight G to E7, getting his other knight into the game on the very good E7 square, and bolstering the other knight on C6. That way, if white takes, black takes back with the other knight, knight E takes C6, and then black will be doing just fine. So now here, Magnus, he's got to find some way to get some play going. Again, E4 is technically an option, but then after queen takes G4, black is doing just fine. Now, instead of that here, Magnus does jump in with the knight to E4, jumping in, putting pressure on the queen immediately. Kind of an interesting idea. And now black is going to have several different squares for the queen in the game. He does go queen to H5. And now he has the discovered attack, potentially on the king and the queen after, say, G3 coming up. So now, Magnus, what is he going to do right here? Well, it turns out, again, he has one good move in this position to mostly maintain the balance. He may be a little bit worse, but Magnus will be okay. And again, if you like puzzles, pause the video right now and try to find the key idea for white in this position. All right, the key move here, believe it or not, is queen to E1. The point being, if the bishop takes the queen, then you take the black queen on H5. So both queens come flying off the board, the attack ends, and your king on E2, the ball cloud square for the king. The king is actually well centralized in the queenless middle game or the end game, whatever you want to call it. The king will be safe and very centrally placed. So that would actually work out quite well for him, queen to E1. Now, instead here, Magnus, he goes off the deep end. He proceeds to sacrifice not just one knight, but two knights back to back. He starts knight to F3, jumping in with the knight. Absolutely suicide for this knight on the F3 square. What is it doing? What is the idea? Well, to be honest, it is not a good move at all, but here is the idea. After black takes on F3, G takes F3, white takes back with the bishop, bishop takes F3, putting pressure on the queen. Now the queen does have to move. In the game, queen to H6 chosen, and now the second knight sacrifice in a row, Magnus Carlsen, knight to F6, and this time, this move is actually brilliant. It's actually the best move in the position. The point being, after, say, G takes, you have the option of going E4 with the discovered attack on the queen on H6. This is the idea. Magnus literally sacrificing two knights in a row, one on F3 and then one on F6 to try and fight back in this game. All right, now here black does take on F6. G takes F6 in the Norwegian Peacock Mantis Shrimp opening. And now, of course, Magnus is going to go E4 with the discovered attack on the queen on H6. Now the queen has to move. We're going to go with the queen. Well, it turns out g6 and g7 are the best squares, but wherever you go, you do give up the defense of the bishop on h4. That is the idea of the knight sacrifice on f6. You do regain that second piece very quickly. So in the game, queen g7 chosen as the square of choice. And now rook takes h4, wins back the piece. Now let's slow down and take inventory right here. It turns out in this position, black is up 1 pawn. He's likely going to win that pawn on e5 as well. That will make 2 pawns. And white, his king, is going to be stranded on e2. It's a very awkward square for the king. And overall, Magnus will be in the fight of his life to hang on in this new opening. All right, now here we have knight takes e5, jumping in with the knight. Now bishop h5, hitting the king and forcing some sort of defensive maneuver. Of course, you don't want to go king to f8. That would be a very bad square for the king, and the rook on h8 would be locked out of the game for a very long time. So with that in mind here, knight 7 g6 is played, giving the king a potential square on e7 if it needs it, intending ideas like maybe rook d8, rook g8, and so on. All right, now here Magnus, rook to h3, retreating the rook and activating it on the third rank. Of course, the rook was under attack by the knight. You had to move it, and now ideas like maybe rook c3, rook b3, and so on could be dangerous later in the game. Now, finally, black does go rook d8, putting the rook on the open d-file, hitting the queen on d1. Now, the queen, of course, does have to move. Where's it going to go? In the game, queen to g1, putting pressure on that knight on g6. All right, now here black goes rook g8, developing the rook. Then we have queen takes a7, that being one of the other ideas of queen g1. You get the queen out of the attack of the rook, and then you go queen takes a7, picking up that pawn on a7. Isn't chess geometry fascinating? All right, now queen d7, centralizing the queen and taking control of the d-file. And now ideas like queen d1 are being threatened. Here, Magnus does have to respect that threat. How does he want to do it? Well, it turns out the best moves here for white are king to e1 and king to f1. The point being, then the bishop on h5 does control the d1 square, stopping queen d1 ideas dead in its tracks. But instead here, Magnus, he doesn't do that. He goes bishop e3, and this turns out to be a very inaccurate move. As you can see by the eval bar on the left side of your screen just collapsing down. We're now down to minus 3.16 pawns. Magnus is in for the fight of his life here. All right, black continues queen to c6, eyeing that e4 square with the queen. Now we have queen to c5, offering the queen trade. And of course here, black, he does not go for the queen trade. Queen takes e4 is the move. And again, black is up those 2 pawns. Those pawns on the e file and the f file, that does give him a massive advantage. All right, now Magnus, he tries to fight back. Rook g1, piling up pressure. And for now, hitting that knight on g6 to the rook on g8. If the knight moves, say, I don't know, knight to f4 or anywhere else, then rook takes g8 would win the rook on the spot. That is certainly to Magnus Carlsen's benefit. All right, now here, black, what should he be doing? Well, turns out knight to c4 is the right move, putting pressure on that bishop on e3, trying to trade off some minor pieces and trying to relieve some of the pressure that Magnus now has in the position. Now, instead of that here, you can also go rook d7 or g7 or somewhere else, but in the game, he goes king to d7, and this move he is done with the intention of defending the pawn on c7, but as you can see by the eval bar on your left, I've never seen an eval bar move that much in one move. One more time, the eval bar all the way down here, then all the way up to around here. That means white is winning if he finds the right combination. Now, if you like puzzles, pause the video right now and try to find the winning idea for Magnus Carlsen to go in this position in the Norwegian Peacock Mantis Shrimp opening. All right, the key idea here, if you found this, you're a stable genius because Magnus missed it, is bishop takes g6. The point being, no matter what you do, the rook is going to take on h7 and you get a vicious attack. For example, bishop takes, knight takes, then rook takes. Instead, bishop takes, rook takes, then rook takes. And instead, if bishop takes, h takes, you still just go rook h7, hitting the king, threatening ideas like queen c7, check next, and so on. The attack is just overwhelming. Now, instead of that here, Magnus, he gets his king a little bit safer. He goes king to f2, but this turns out to be a massive mistake. Again, the eval bar all the way up there, now collapsing, and you don't have to give black 2 chances in this position. He just goes king to c8. His king is safe. c7 will be defended properly, and there's nothing Magnus can do here. He tries to fight on. Rook hg3, piling up pressure on the g-file, but now knight to f4, jumping in with the other knight, offering the rook trade. The point being, if you take the rook, black is going to have a beautiful combination. Again, if you like puzzles, pause the video and try to find the idea behind knight f4, seemingly giving up that rook on the g8 square, but of course black has an idea. All right, here, rook takes g8 is the move for Magnus, but now the beautiful tactical shot, absolutely gorgeous. We're talking Sofia Vergara level beauty right here. It is the move, knight f to d3, the knight sacrifice. The point being, the two knights overload the d3 square, hitting the queen and the king. If you take the first knight, as Magnus did in the game, c takes d3, then the other knight takes his place, hitting the queen and the king once again. This is just devastating. All right, king to e2, getting out of the attack. Then knight takes c5, winning the queen, and then bishop f3, jumping back with the bishop, hitting the queen. But of course here, black is up material. He has the rook, the queen, and the minor piece versus the two rooks and two minor pieces of white, not to mention two extra pawns. I mean, that is just an overwhelming material advantage. All right, now, queen c2 is the move, hitting the king, king to f1, then knight to d3, jumping in with the knight, threatening all kinds of ideas. Now, rook takes d8, trades the rooks, king takes d8, and then we have rook g8, flying in with the other rook. Magnus, in order to win this game, he's got to find some way to get counterplay with his rook and his two bishops. Yes, they are a potent, powerful force here, but of course, black is doing just fine. King d7, he steps out of the attack. Now, rook g7, and now king d6. The king is officially a fighting piece in this weird endgame, middle game sort of game. All right, now, rook g2, flying back with the rook, queen b1, it hits the king, king to e2, and now here, the last move in this game is simply knight d5, and in this position, Magnus Carlsen, he resigns on the spot to black. Let's look up his name one more time. He resigns to Uniski Quesada Perez, I hope I pronounced that right, in this crazy new chess opening I'm calling the Norwegian Peacock Mantis Shrimp opening, named after Magnus. Of course, Magnus is Norwegian, so it's named after him, not myself. I don't know how you guys mixed that up, but anyway, Magnus Carlsen's brand new chess opening. It worked out until it didn't, until he blundered, and then he lost the game. Wow, what a game between Magnus and Uniski Quesada Perez in Norwegian Peacock Mantis Shrimp opening in the Title Tuesday tournament from February 2024. All right, Chess YouTube, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash that like button and comment down below what you liked or didn't like about this video. I'd love to hear your feedback. And while you're at it, check out this video right here, where Magnus invents yet another brand new chess opening, this time against Hans Niemann himself, his new rival, frenemy, whatever you want to call it. That game's incredible. If you haven't seen it, check it out, and I'll see you in the next video.